This week, uh, I wanted to kind of clarify the direction we're going with the last few lessons and finding we're developing our sense of awareness of our divinity and what that means to us, right? So we're understanding or coming into the awareness that we are um, created beings and we are uh, creation and we're intended to create, and that we are our divine self, and the life, the concepts and beliefs and um, all of that we our patterns of living are all um, overlays over the top of um, of our I am self. Our I am self never changes. Like, it's always the same. We were I am before we became our I am human self. And when we leave this realm, um, we'll be back in our authentic being, our authentic expression. So we don't have to wait to leave to live there. We can have that awareness and the power of that expression here and now. And moving um, into teaching about, you know, defining for ourselves what it is that we believe. If we believe we are authentic divine beings, then what does that mean to us in how we're being and um, the path that we're taking while we're here? And, there's a multitude of expressions we can have, and there's no we're never going to miss our boat. And there's no wrong, we were supposed to be this and now we're being this, and so our life isn't going to be as good. I don't believe that that's a thing at all. It's moving away from limiting concepts that we have about uh, who we are and our power in being here. So moving more into our awareness of our high self, our divine self, and our connection to our source, right? Moving into um, a more consistent expression and more consistent awareness of that in our day to day life. And the attributes of the divine, the attributes that we um, attach to being uh, God or holy or high, are our attributes also. And so we look in the mirror of life and we see how we're being, and then we're shown how we're being, and then we get a revelation about what we can tweak or let go of or move out of the way, make more room to be living in freedom. Because living in our authenticity and living in our high self is living a life of freedom, and it's living a life of peace and joy and abundance. It's living a life that is manifested attributes of the divine life that we are. So um, we've kind of been, looking at that in the last couple of weeks, and really wanting to challenge every aspect of how we're being and thinking, and is it lining up to what our truth is, and what our high divine self is, and living more in our intuitive voice, which is our high voice. It's the voice that knows, that always was and is and ever will be. It's the voice It's our aspect of our it's our light in our life that will guide us and show us which way to go, and takes care of us. And that's our intuition. We hear it, a gut feeling. um, my sister and I were talking earlier today, you know, like we know when, um, the hot water's running out in the shower. Like you just have a sense like I need to get out because it's going to be cold, not because you're timing it. Or, if I say I need to get up at 6, I'll wake up at 6. Like, and, you know, beginning to listen to and discern our intuitive voice and trust it, and accept it as truth more, then that will begin to be the voice we hear more. And we will begin to be receiving the guidance that is always there for us. Right. So, because it's always there for us, but our thinking mind steps in and goes, the hot water's not going to run out, or you better set your alarm because you'll sleep through it, or, all of the naysaying aspect um, that flies in the face of the magic that's us. The magic that's us. I can walk through the grocery store and know I need to buy stuff, and I'll come home and find out it's just about run out. We learn to listen. We learn to listen and we learn to trust. And then as we become familiar, we get that guidance in we trust it in the bigger things. We trust it in the bigger things in life. And we begin to have a conversation. And that's, we're moving into our divine presence more, and away from our ego mind thought process, which says what I see is what I know, and what I see is the truth. And anything that comes across my mind that is opposite of what I am looking at, I'm going to challenge, because what I see is what's real, right? But so much more is real than what we see. What we see is just what we're interpreting about life all around us. It's only that way for us because that's our perception. It's not that way for other people necessarily. So we can begin to live in the freedom and the joy and the peace of our high heart, like we talked about before, our high heart, and begin to move out in our personal expression of our divine self, and begin to trust in that knowing that resides within each one of us. It's making the shift from thinking and living in the senses, and beginning to listen and um, live from within, from the eternal realm, from the unlimited space, from the space of all possibility. That's where we're shifting into uh, learning and having an awareness of on a moment to moment basis, like on a moment to moment basis. And um, that is where we have absolute clarity about decisions that we're making, small ones and big ones, right? Because our high self sees everything, always was, and always will be. So we are surrendering away from our need to control and into the relationship of, of receiving, seeing, and understanding our divine self. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm a divine being, and yes, I am created out of divine fabric, and divine light and life is flowing through me. But I'm not going to listen to it because it doesn't make sense to me, because I'm living based on what I see and hear and understand in this limited realm. So, it's like, we accept it with our mind, but um, challenge our we challenge our divine voice when we hear it, and subtly, and don't listen, or make another choice and then later go, oh, I should have done that, or I knew that was going to happen, or I knew that, but I made a choice to not follow that, right? We've all had those experiences. So um, in doing that, in uncovering each one of our authentic uh, divine self, uncovering it to ourselves, we have to find our own way. And we have to begin to see ourselves in the mirror, and understand our unique way of being, and receiving the fact that it is not going to be in lockstep with most of the people in our life, and around us, unless they're living that way themselves, right? So um, instead of stepping away from what we don't know or what isn't familiar, beginning to look at it with neutrality, and beginning to allow our own voice to guide us, right? And our own voice to lead us along the path. And so I was thinking of an example, and uh, so say um, you're going to this really important event, and you want to bring something, and the hostess says, yeah, you can bring the dessert, like bring a really super special dessert, and we really need one of those, we have everything else. And you're like, hey, okay, I'm going to make this cake I always make, right? And you go and you get your box of cake mix from the pantry, or your recipe, and you start to um, look at it, and you realize that you don't have some of the ingredients, right? And so now you're faced with a decision. Am I going to follow the rules on this package? Am I going to follow along with this process over here that I'm super familiar with? Or is there another way that I can make this dessert that's going to be just as good, and nobody's ever going to know, right? And so you don't have you don't have oil, and you're like, shoot, I really need oil to make this cake, right? And have it be super moist and delicious. So you ponder, and then you get this idea. Ah, applesauce. I read somewhere applesauce replaces oil. So you root through your and you're like, I got applesauce. So you're like, okay, I'm good to go, right? And you go further down the recipe thing, and there's something else missing. And you're like, oh, I should just go buy a cake, right? But you don't have time. And then your inner voice says, that's okay. Like, you don't have eggs, there's an egg substitute. Like, let's figure that out. And so you figure it out. And now you start to engage yourself in the process of making this super most delicious dessert, um, with what you have. And you begin to listen to the voice inside you that says, hey, don't you remember egg replacement is this? And remember applesauce replaces oil. And you're now listening to your inner voice, because you're not distracted by the steps that are laid out on the back of the box, right? So you've opened up and become aware, and are seeking out answers to your questions, because you're in a pickle. Like, you need to have this cake made and put together for this evening. So you don't have time to run out and try and solve it another way, right? So you've opened up. You've opened up and you've begun to listen to your inner voice, and you've begun to trust in it. And you don't have, because you don't have another choice, maybe, or you just decided, hey, I'm going to make it happen. And you put this cake together and you bake it, and it comes out super delicious, right? Comes out super delicious. And it's a fabulous dessert, and everybody loves it. And you did it your way, and you did it. You did it through listening to your own voice, and you did it different than um, what everybody else would be doing, right? So I hope that wasn't too crazy a thing, but um, we can follow a system and steps, but if something isn't working or that piece doesn't work for us, we listen to our inner voice, and it will guide us into something that will provide something better or just as good, or the end result will be just as good or better. And we do that through learning to listen and trust that we are much more, much more than meets our physical eye. There's an enormous depth of wisdom and knowledge and power and creativity within the depths of every human being that's unique to them. And tapping into that, falling behind the mind that wants to follow what everybody else is doing, or right and wrong, or all of that, and letting go of those concepts and beginning to flow in the creativity that is alive. It's a fire burning in each one of us that is just waiting for an opportunity for us to listen. So, we all have learned to be quiet. We all have learned to hear our inner voice. We've all learned to spend a quiet time, and we've learned to have a moment by moment conversation. We've learned to be aware of the divine around us and within us. So with all of that, what do we do with all of that? That's the where are we going with this, so that it begins to flow out into our life and power and into the lives of people around us. And how do we use this power within us to create and to make changes? And that starts with listening and engaging and trusting and going after it. So in our journey through this class and through our life, we've learned to tap in, and now we can tap in not in separate moments, but in the real moments of our everyday life. We're connected. We're tapped in, and we are able to hear what it is that we need in our moment to moment. So that's what I have today. Is just a little bit more clarity about where we're going, and then practice, learning to listen and follow the voice that comes from your heart. Your intuitive voice is much different than the one that comes out of your head. The one that comes out of the head is limited, and it's usually a yes or no, or challenging, or the one that comes out of our heart is clear. It's a knowing, and it comes with peace. It comes with a quietness, or an assuredness in what we're hearing. So there's a difference. And when we learn to discern the difference and follow the with confidence, the inner voice that comes to us from the heart, from the high mind, the high heart, then we'll start moving in, in power in our lives in ways that we only imagined before or just read about or that other, heard that other people experience. And it's there for all of us exactly the same. So unmute yourselves and let me know what you think about that. Does does anyone hear their intuitive voice? I know you all do.
This class has been awesome for me, and I really learned to listen to my intuitive voice and not just dismiss it as some thoughts from my brain. And it's been very helpful. And I'm so glad everyone's on this journey with me. So I'm not alone.
The two Pike sisters in the wilderness.
And I feel like I'm crawling along sometimes and being like the dumbest person on earth. But it's I've really been excited on this journey, and um, it's been awesome. And learning to trust your intuitive self is really helpful for me. Kind of clears out all the stuff that gets poured into your head every day from everything around you, and um, getting pushed by emotions here and there, and all the people around you have things to say, and it's clarifying for me. So
And it helps with our making decisions about where we spend our time, because sometimes I will think, oh, I want to go do this thing, and I start making plans. I'm going to go do this thing, um, and all of a sudden I'll know that's not happening this week. Like I'll just know it. Not like it's not happening because it's bad, but it's not going to happen this week. And so I'll start just lightly in my mind, I'll start going Monday, Tuesday. Okay, it's not happening this week. How about next week? Like Monday. And then I'll be, okay, Tuesday. I know Tuesday, like, will be available for that. Instead of making my plans, overriding that guidance, and then being disappointed because I need to change them, or having to change my whole, if I have appointments or something like that. So that's just another example of how we have that available to us in our moment by moment. Even don't eat this, eat that, you know, and you're the only one who went out that doesn't have heartburn now. Like, we get that guidance all the time. It's trusting it. So no other comments,
I
question.
like the, I like the stretch. I like the stretch, especially with the example of applesauce and oil, because as the sugar addict that I'm trying not to be, I've had a cake with applesauce in it, and it was very, very moist.
Mm-hmm.
So you made me think about that moment, and I can recall the very first time that I heard that, and was like, applesauce. You got to be yanking my chain.
Right.
And then then tasting it, it was really, really good. So that was a great stretch.
Good. The answer's always there. It might even seem weird, but it's always there.
You just have to open the pantry.
Just have to open the pantry.
That is true.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's see what Tom says. Leading with your heart, it's so much softer and powerful than leading with your head. Thank you, Tom Droza. It's true.
It is true, and it's hard.
It can be.
Well, it can be. I mean,
It-
it's not hard. It's like a practice.
Because I feel like it's challenging because it's a shift away from what we think we know. It's like trusting that um, that you're going to step off the step and there will be another one there. You're not going to disappear down a hole in the ground. And that, but so we start small and knowing like we're not going to be sacrificed for our efforts of trying. We sometimes I'll say, oh, I'm hearing this, but I'm not sure. And then I get another chance. Or I realize, next time I'll just accept the guidance. I'll accept the guidance, right? So it's a, our self loves us so much. It's not gonna, lead us into a ditch somewhere. There will be a step. There will be a net. you know, You'll walk on the water or you'll be able to swim. One of the two. Like, if you take the chance, you're going to build that muscle and you're going to get stronger. And the only person who thinks they're going to look like a fool is you. And that's your brain. That's not your heart. Because nobody's watching us anyway. People are watching themselves. So just practice, take little steps and put the intention out there. I'm going to listen today uh, and start to develop my ear for my intuitive voice. So help me do that. And then make it a game, make it fun, not some judgmental thing. Like if you decide not to listen and then you're like, oh, I'm so terrible, I'm not going to try anymore. No, just go, got it now. Because a lot of it is trusting that we're hearing what we're hearing is valid and coming from our heart. And there's a difference in the tone. It's softer, like Tom said. It's a knowing. Like for me, it's a no. It's clear. It's solid. It's a knowing. If I'm challenging myself, I don't know. It's because I'm distracted usually, or thinking about I'm in a hurry or impatient or something like that. But when I say, yeah, okay, I have a feeling that I'm not going to go anywhere this week, I'm okay with that. And then the next week, it's like, yeah, now I can go. So, for some reason, it's better for us, or whatever.
And I think having the intention of learning or trying and putting it out there with yourself, even if you're not seeing a result, it's still going in and it's still in and it's still working with you and it's still part of the process. Even if you're not, you're like, oh, I'm so lame. I'm not good at that. I didn't see whatever it was. I didn't get the ding. I didn't, but it's going through the process of it. It's like a lot of other things. It's going in and it's still working and doing what it's supposed to do, and it helps you the next time you do it.
Yeah.
It's the practice kind of thing. Even if you don't see the result, I think it's for me. my little efforts are getting bigger and bigger over time. And it's like all the kind of a lot of other things that you do.
Mhm.
The effort, the intention, the gathering of information, the thought and the feeling you put into it, it comes in, it's still doing something, even if our brain is like not
Mhm.
seeing it.
Yeah. Truth is truth, and the truth sets us free. Little by little, big hunks at a time. I mean, this is an example of a tuned up, someone tuned into their intuition, right? This training I was listening to, this guy, he really was at a point in his life he wanted to move away from his engineering career and be more in a healing practice, um, because he was already in a healing practice. He wanted to do more of it, so he wasn't like jumping and deciding that for himself. He was already in one and was wanting to shift out of his mainstream career, and he was really discussing it with his himself, and his inner voice said, uh, I want you to go to Europe for the month of July and stay with your friend over there, and that then you'll see or something. So he was like, how am I going to work that out? Well, his boss came and said, we have this big project and we can't pay you for it. More money for the overtime. Can't what can we do instead? And he said, I'll take the month of July off. it, right? So he got the guidance. He didn't get like a detailed small print roadmap. He got, this is what is here for you. And so when his boss came, he was like, oh, great. Compensation would be a month off because I have some things to do. He got a month off. He went, stayed with his friends in Europe, wherever it was, and met a woman who was doing, had a school, and they needed a teacher for the summer in the school of teaching this healing practice that he did. So he was able to segue out of his job and into his new career with ease. I mean, it was challenging probably because he sold his house and all kinds of stuff, but the house sold in a day. Like it was, when things are, when we're listening and we're in flow, things, the pieces start clicking together. We might not get, we're wanting like, give me A, B, C, D, and all the variables that might show up and how I should handle them. That's not living by listening to your intuition and developing that voice. That's our mind going, uh, I'm so fearful something's going to go wrong. I want all of the steps, but we're getting steps. We're at peace with them. We're walking them out. We ask the question that I want to move out of this career and into something else. We're guided into that opportunity. It would make sense we would take it, right? But that's, somebody who has learned to listen, and the conversation is that clear. I've had that kind of clarity in situations in my life. Go do this. This is the next step. So it start small. Start listening, practice with the, you know guess what time it is. What time is it? And then look at the clock. You're going to be right a lot of the time, and then pretty soon you're like, oh, I got this, and then pretty soon you'll know what time it is, right? So we have it within us. It's an underdeveloped aspect of ourselves, but it is the key. It's the gateway into moving forward and being successful in moving into areas of our life, or making recipes that we don't know, right? The guidance is there. We open to it and we begin to become familiar, and we're doing it in our day-to-day life, moment by moment, not just in a set aside time. right? So when we develop our ear for our inner voice and we begin to trust, then we begin to have knowing about so many things in our life. And we trust without, we trust. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Good. Thank you. So I want you to practice this week doing that, and maybe even keep a little journal, right? Like we talked about keeping a creation journal, keep a little notepad, not a big fancy thing, just a little notepad about, uh, you know, I'm learning to listen, and I heard this and I heard that, or I asked this question, I got this answer, so that you build your confidence that it actually resides within you moment by moment. It's a relationship, and it's here to help us live a fulfilled experience here because it's us. So all right, if there's no further comment, we'll have a meditation along that line. I'm gonna stop the recording.